Is this more stressful than the Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, this is like a wedding. This is like a wedding, man, because it's just, you know, the dinner and um the actual ceremony and trying to get, okay, what people can you get where, and then the seating in the stadium afterwards for the games, and where can, because you can't fit all the people in a suite, so you got to split people up. And
That's right.
I have friends from college, family flying
Mm-hmm.
in, friends flying in, so it's nonstop. Right, I've gotten to the point where it whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. Anyone starts calling and saying, "Oh, I can make it," or "I can't make it," not too bad.
This is New Ground with Alan Hopkins Jr. Let's go. And Jalil Anibaba.
Cobi Jones joining us ahead of his statue unveiling. And Cobi, we talked a little bit about it previously in sort of the idea of staying in the moment and then stacking all these moments together. And then kind of just being about the process and hoping that what you've done matters in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. I don't know anyone who's ever actually had a statue, so I'm going to have to be a little bit curious and nosy. Like, how does this come about? Do they call you? Are there like rumors? Is this like a Hollywood star Walk of Fame thing where you kind of hear about it? Or was it like, were they trying to prank you like James Corden, and shout out to the Fullwell guys? Like, what was that like in that moment? Because clearly, they didn't 3D print this thing. This has been happening for a while, but take us back to when you first found out that this was going to happen.
Yeah, well, they did a very good job. They apparently kept my wife in the loop right up until the moment, or brought her in right before. And I was called into a all staff meeting at the Galaxy. That's what we know about.
Okay.
So
okay.
They said, yeah, we're having a meeting, and it's down in down below,
yes,
at Dignity Health Sports Park. And I was just like, okay, this is an interesting place that we're having at this day. And it was like in the media room, and everyone was kind of sitting there, and I knew something was going on when I walked in, and my manager was there.
Oh, right. Carrie was there. Shout out to Carrie.
Just
yes.
a big grin on her face, and then I was like, okay, something's happening.
Right.
At this point,
right.
They surprised me with a video and everything that was happening and going on, that they were actually presented to me, that they were going to have I was going to be the third statue, and they put a video out, and Beckerman was there, Tom Braun was there, everybody, in the organization in AEG. So it was a complete shock and surprise.
How, I guess, what's the emotional trigger when you think about that? Like, where do you go to? Is it your family, your mom and your dad, wonderful folks? Shout out to Westlake and Cobi's represented Ventura County, California to the top for a long, long time, long before Anderson .Paak was, but that's a whole nother thing. But Cobi, like, what when you think about these crystallized moments, like what ran, you saw everyone, you knew something was happening, and then once you realize, like, oh, this is I will live in forever, in a way, as much as anything lives forever. Where did your mind immediately go to?
Mine goes to family, right away. For me, I have had some loss, so
yes,
you naturally think about that. And, for me, with the loss of my mom a few years back, it's just like, I wish she could have been here. I wish she could be, how proud she would be, all those types of things naturally, go into your head. But then I think about, all the time and effort, that my family put in over the years. And, as a kid, that doesn't even register for you, and you're just thinking about that, all that time and effort, that the parents put in has come to fruition. It's come to a moment that will allow me to have something special that will live, as you said, for as forever can be, at this stage.
Yes. Right.
So, it just the import, I think about the words, that she would say to me and encourage me, all those all those things through the years. And then after that, I started thinking about the friends, and the people that were involved through the years, because there's a lot that in some way affect you to allow you to be where you are.
Is this more stressful than the Hall of Fame?
Oh yeah, this is like a wedding. This is like a wedding, man. I tell you, because it's just, the dinner and the the actual ceremony, and trying to get, okay, what people can you get where, and then the seating in the stadium afterwards for the games, and because you can't fit all the people in a suite, so you got to split people up. And
that's right.
I have friends from college, family flying in, friends flying in. So it's nonstop, man. It's crazy.
You're gonna feel like you're gonna sleep so good Sunday night. Like, man, oh man, you're gonna sleep really good.
I've gotten to the point, like anyone that's gone through a wedding and then has gotten married, I've gotten to the point where whatever's going to happen is going to happen. Anyone starts calling and saying, "Oh, I can make it," or "I can't make it," not too bad. It's just, you're on your own.
That's right. I like to lead the world in first world problems, and certainly that is certainly a group of them. But I have full respect for the wrangling and all that stuff, and you have to be on point. Like, this is like, you're right about the wedding. You also need to be like a great host, and you're the center of attention and all these things too. So it gets to be very layered. So I'm hoping for not a hot day. I hope it's not like, sometimes you go to a graduation and, you're just out there in the sun. I'm hopeful that we get a little overcast, but a nice bit of lighting for sure. It's funny, when you have kids, you feel a certain way. And then when you have friends who have kids, it's like they make you feel older, because of like other kids are getting older and things like that. And that's a different experience. But Cobi, I was thinking about that 1998 year. And I didn't realize in the moment that you were balling like that. Like, what I mean? Honestly, to be MLS Best 11, to be U.S. Soccer Athlete of the Year, I didn't really put it all together, because maybe I just also got a chance to see you literally up close and personal in your prime UCLA years. And I tell this story often about El Camino College on a fall night in September 1991, my little scrappy Westmont college. We went down there to El Camino. I'll never forget, we come off the bus, and correct me if I'm wrong, Cobi, Joe Max Moore used to have that 300Z. Right? Yeah, he had the 300Z with the Joe Max plates.
I don't think he had that in college, did he?
Okay.
Maybe he might have. He might have had that.
But that's what I remember thinking. Dorothy, you're not in Kansas anymore. And we had a great team. We were winning 2-0 at half. And El Camino, the lockers were like next to each other on one side. And Siggy just let you guys have it.
Shock,
and
right?
Yeah, we are, everyone's gassed, because it's like, it's like playing you guys back then was like, either you had the chassis, or it's almost like you had to be another Ferrari in the Ferrari club to keep up with you guys. You might be able to do it for a little bit. You might be able to do it for a bit, but to do it for the whole game, the whole match, that's where you guys were just different. And you guys know this for sure. But man, Siggy went off. You guys came out and just dominated. I think you scored the late winner. And so when I think about how, 98 to 91, that's not a long time. That's like having a 7-year-old in a way. A lot's happened, but nothing's happened at the same time. Now that you talk about the reflection, and you have all these things that you sort of can go through your own museum of success, were you thinking at that time, like, this is the peak of who I am and what I'm doing? Were you that conscious of it? Or was it just, this is kind of just the next team, and I've always tried to be the best player on the best team? When you think about who you are now, who were you back then?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. To tell you the truth, back then, you're in it. right? You're just thinking about yourself, and it's a little bit of what you said. It was like, okay, this is just the next team that I'm on, or more so like this is the next year, of that team. How can I be the best player that I can be, on this team and make this team better? I came from an era where there was no really like professional league or anything, or even thought of, playing overseas. You have to remember, I didn't even think that, I was really going to play soccer past high school. So everything here, this was just gravy, and I was just having a fun time. College days, making the most of it. I was trying to have like a complete college experience of playing sports and going to school. And that was my thought. Especially in like 90, 91. It started. That's also the time when it kind of started to change. Whereas Ziggy actually was the one that started putting me in front of higher level situations. I can remember the first time where he asked me to go where they, back then you had all these camps. There was like a pre Olympic camp, that he had asked me. He said, "Hey, they're having a camp. Why don't you go out and train with them, for a little bit." That was my freshman year. And the funny thing is I can remember going out and training with them, and I ended up getting mono right after. and I was done with school for like a month, like right during like Thanksgiving and everything. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. But yeah, for me at least, I was just trying to play on the team that I was on at the time without any thought of what the next step was.
You mentioned that Olympic team, people have always told me, a couple of people who've been Olympians, whether it be like a Kurt Onalfo or a Evan Whitfield, is that still the hardest team to make? Just because like it was only 18 then, right? Is that correct in 92? Or maybe 20? But it always felt like, just based on numbers, it was a hard team to make. So if you think about that proving ground of the Olympics in 92, was that what you needed, that opportunity heading into 94?
I do think so. I mean, you have that whole process back then when you had the Olympic festivals, which was probably one of the craziest.
That's right.
Moments. Yeah, you have these festivals, and I can remember I went to 2 of them, and people have to realize it was basically the best players from every region going to one spot, basically like a mini U.S. Olympics, and then competing, and that was crazy. You were either the West, East, North, or South, and you just played in these games. And that was kind of like that proving ground where you eventually make it into the Olympic team. And that was like the first time where I had a look at other players from around the country.
Like who? I was just going to say, can you name check who was there at the Olympic Festival that you were like going up against? That obviously you know everyone in so many different ways, but like who were some of the players that you're seeing for the first time that would later become teammates on the full team?
Oh, it'd be like Lawless, was one of them. And to be fair, a lot of the players that ended up on the full team came from UCLA,
That's true.
In the end, but there's also like Lawless, the Steve Snows, the Eric Imlers, all these types of players from all over, East, West, North, South. And, we would play each other, fight it out, battle it out. And then from there, they would pick a few players. And then the same thing would happen again the following year. And then they would pick a few players and finally and eventually make up the Olympic team. So it was just a long-term 2-year process of trying to make that squad.
How often were you playing? Do you remember, were you playing every day? Or because only because I just remember there not being, we're the same vintage. There wasn't that ubiquity or that constancy of playing. Like you would be training and staying fit. But in terms of being a part of the machinery and the apparatus, like even at your level, would you remember, like, were you playing every day, like say in March and April or May? Or was it like, hey, I'm on now, I'm kind of off now, but I like to play, so I'm always going to be playing anyway?
It was more along the lines of I'm on now, I'm off now. I mean, because back then you're playing for your college team. Then you'd have the spring season, and you'd have to go and find out kind of like what team you're going to be playing on, and
for the summer.
For the summer, the coach would kind of help. And then in that off season, then you go to the Olympic team or the Olympic festival and play a couple of games, here and there. But when I look at the professional game, when I was a pro, and even the game in the professional game now, there was a lot of downtime, in comparison, where you would have times. I can remember, trying to find these teams. Like I played on the Croats, and we would fly up to San Francisco and play in these tournaments. But I think that was one of the most interesting, funny, and intriguing things, because when you're playing in these games, you got to remember, when you're in college, you're playing with 18 to 22-year-olds, maybe 20.
Especially back then.
Right? Yeah.
Especially back then. It was very age pure college. Yes.
Exactly. So that was your range. But then when you would go out and you play on these teams like the Croats and all this stuff, you're playing with men, so you are getting a quick lesson right away of just like how it works. And these weren't like pros. These guys were jobs, right? A lot of these guys were you were playing just like, okay, this is the way. It was gritty, it was eaten, survive, the Thunderdome basically.
And there'd be ballers everywhere. I always tell people I was playing one way and then going to Santa Barbara and playing in the Sunday League there for Rudy Ibarra. That changed me, because those Sunday League matches were real. And you had to learn how to play, because there was a lot of other things on the line that you weren't always aware of. It was very important. And I was always curious how these coaches had team. Everyone had money. We basically like a little professional team. Some guys would, you just said
the secret part out loud, huh? Yeah.
Right.
Everyone had money somehow. What was going on?
I was never a money guy. Like, I was happy to be there, luckily, but I would always be like, oh, okay, because there'd be so many quality players. And that's what I always loved about the game back then, was, not to be my old man, but I just felt like there was just players everywhere, and everyone's backstory was so different. Now it's a little bit more sterile because we have this more polished process. But back in the day, there'd just be kind of players that popped up everywhere. Even for you being a part of like so many talented UCLA teams and being around great players, were you still always coming across players even then that you're like, hey, you're pretty good. Like, what are you doing? And they may not be going to college, or they may be doing something different. Do you remember that time before every player was kind of professionalized in some way?
Yeah, but for me, during that time, it was more like when I came off of the college season,
Campus,
and they were playing those other teams, because then and usually those guys were like older, older guys where you're just like, oh, wait a second, these guys got some, or they just looked older, who knows?
That's right. That's right.
The grind of the real world.
School ain't for everyone. That's what I learned. School ain't for everyone.
They had the school of life going on early. But of course there are players I'm just like, man, this guy's good. What is going on? Why aren't they being looked at to go do something else, or do something special?
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. Jalil and I talk a lot about the college pathway, and those UCLA years, how important are they to you and your story?
The UCLA years are critical. Being a walk-on at UCLA, that was a different path, just as far as, just being resilient and self-reliant and believing in yourself, and then, just, what I always say in my story is the obstacles that you have to overcome, and the belief that you have to have in yourself, and you have to keep the naysayers away, man, because they're always there, they're always there. And then to overcome and to go from a walk-on at UCLA to a player that starts after his second game, every game for the rest of his career at UCLA.
Basically, yes.
All-American and going to the Olympic team, and that kind of catapults everything through there, so, and then, like I've said before, the people, the teammates and the friends, that I made through there are people that I traveled that pathway a lot with, and then I still talk to a lot of those guys to this day.
It's such a full circle moment in so many ways. I mean, people look, their number 13 is retired, but you scored the first goal in club history, right?
Yeah.
Don't you have the first Galaxy goal?
Yeah.
This is wild. Like, you have real receipts. Like, look, I know across the way, in town, there's a lot of talk about Bouanga and Son, and there's a lot of this, so there's been some great attacking talented players that come through the league, but when those Galaxy teams were clicking, like for the people, like I think sometimes it's important to lay out receipts, and that's what we try to do on this show. But talk about what it was like for you or Hurtado or Mauricio Cienfuegos, like these players that were just like game wreckers by themselves. And then there's you, or you're the game wrecker, and then there's them. Like, what was it like for you guys knowing that it was going to be very, very hard for one of you guys, or not all three of you guys, to have some sort of say in the goals?
Yeah, well, let's make this clear, and so people can have an understanding when you talk about receipts and all of this stuff.
Yes.
The Galaxy, we started in '96, so the Galaxy wasn't just like, okay, they formed the team, okay, everybody hates the Galaxy. No,
right.
It didn't start like that. The hate came because we were good, because we dominated. People forget that. Yes, we had the good old MLS shootout and stuff like that.
Yes,
but we went at the very beginning of the season. We went 13 games, I believe it was, without a loss. And at the beginning, we won the first game, then we won the second game, then we won the third game. People are starting to talk about us. 4, 5, 6, 7. All of a sudden, all the talks, and guess what? Around 8 or 9, everyone hates the Galaxy because we were so good.
It happened quick. The hate happened quick. That's right.
Like that. And so when you talk about that team and even that era, to a degree in the subsequent years, we were a fluid, attacking, exciting team where everybody wants, as far as, so everybody liked us. And people have to remember, during that time, we got to a point that people hated us so much, where we would go as a team, the stadiums got crowded.
That's right.
Everyone wanted to see us play. Everyone wanted to beat us, that type of thing. So yes, with myself, Cien, Hurtado, we were fantastic up front, just making things happen, nonstop defensively, in the back with Kalishman and Frazier.
Robin.
There, it was, we were like solid. Campos in goal. It was exciting, all the way around. So it was a team, people forget Chris Armas as well in the midfield, and the center of the midfield. It was a team, as you put it right, a team that just clicked. And when we clicked, oh man, it was pretty to watch.
I think it would hold up today. I think the way you guys played and everything relative, like your talent in today's chassis, and you know what I mean. I think you guys would be a team that could score 3, 4, 5 on you if you're not careful. But also, I think about just the collection of people and men and characters. And the one thing I remember a lot about being around that team was, like, I felt like you guys liked each other a lot. I felt like you liked being around each other. It reminded me of, it was aspiring. Like, you wanted to be a part of a group like that you went out together, you hung out together, you vibed together, you spent your time away from the field together, and you included your families and your friends and girlfriends and all these different things. Like, I was telling some young bucks the other day, and you remember how this was. There used to not be charter.
Yeah.
So you would stay in market after the match.
Yeah.
And how much fun was that? Not to get into it, but it's because you got a chance to create a brotherhood bond with not only your teammates, but other people that you knew very well, particularly for a player like you, who had national teammates in other markets and things like that. So, when you think about the players you play with and all these matches and all those things, like, it goes back to the old Maya Angelou, like, you forget what people say, but you always remember how people make you feel. Like, how much of that feeling is something that still resonates in your heart and your spirit today?
Oh, it's there constantly. And anytime that I run into any of these guys, we fall right back into the old tropes, I guess you could say. We're right back into our old positions. And you said it right. And I feel jealous of the times today, but I also feel sorry for the times today, because, like you said, perfect
Yes.
example is the charter, right? These teams now, they charter in before and then they charter out, and then they're back home, and then they kind of split up and go. One of the
That's right.
things that was bad about our time is, okay, we didn't charter, so we were regular flights, and sometimes you got middle back bathroom was your seat.
That's right.
but that was part of the bonding process. We bonded in misery, and sometimes we bonded in joy, like after games. I think that's probably one of the biggest missing points, is not staying in the cities afterwards and hanging out and bonding as a group. And it is something that I think that detracts, from,
Yes.
getting like you said, almost that culture, within the team, because it's all the time. It's right after the game. It's okay, grab your stuff, hop on the flight, boom, you're back home. And then, get home at 3 a.m, and then you're going your separate ways,
That's right. That's right. Yeah, exactly. People forget you get home at 3 a.m, and then depending on how far away the facility you live.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if you live an hour away? You're like coming in at 4 and all those things for sure. And I think, it's like, not to be nostalgic, but we'd be remiss if I didn't touch on, your U.S. men's national team days. And there's no one literally who can speak on experience more than you, right? You have the most caps. Do you remember all the caps?
No,
like not to put you on the spot.
No,
I'm just saying, like, I don't think I can remember 165 of anything, right? Or 164, however many is, like, of anything, right? So my point is, like, how much do you, or you're an executive, you've been a broadcaster, you've done so many different things after the game, you've coached for your team, even you've done everything, right? So are you able to remove any of that red, white, and blue from the lens in which you think about this team and the World Cup? Or, like, no, I get to have my bias and I get to be an apologist, and however I feel about the team is however I feel about the team. Do you feel at all compelled to differentiate maybe kind of how you see the team and how you feel about the group?
I think you can't. Look, for me, when I look at the national team, right?
Right.
I personally feel that I will always look at it from a player's perspective, because I was a player, and I have to take that experience to heart. And now I can bring in the other components, as you said, as needed, but I will always look at it as a player's first perspective. That doesn't mean I'm always going to side with the players, all the times. But I'm a big believer, because I know when I was there, I knew when I played a terrible game. I knew when I played a bad game. I knew when I played a good game, or it could have gone either way.
Right.
I think we have to understand that, if we're going to be critical of a team, that it's tough to say this and get it out right, critical in a positive way, right? I think that's one of the things that I think is extremely important. And for me, with my experience over the years and going through the trials and tribulations of helping to establish, not only this league, but U.S. soccer, I think I take a little bit of license, to have a little bit more freedom in how I look at the team.
That's the word.
I always hope that the young men that are there understand that, like you said, on the other side, I am a cheerleader for the U.S. team. I want them to be as successful, as possible, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to criticize when I think that they're having a bad game. It's not criticizing out of just like, oh yeah, I hope they're terrible. No, it's just like, when people ask me, I'm going to say, well, I think this or that.
Right.
And I hope that they take it to heart with an understanding of that this is just me talking about what I see from my lived experience, from what I experienced in the game.
And you've earned that equity, to be fair. You would never say that. I mean, maybe you would, but my point is, like, you've earned that equity to be critical in a way that is positive, because I know that's your spirit and that's who you are as a person. I also think the players, the current players, I think sometimes forget how many of the former players really do cape for them because of what you said at the beginning of this response. I view this from a player's perspective, and that player-to-player perspective will always prevail 10 times out of 10, 7 days of the week and twice on Sunday. So that's like my one wish for this current group of players, is that when they hear the 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people that have a platform and a microphone to be critical of them, that even those individuals have a place for this team that still is very real and genuine and comes from a place of wanting to see the team be successful. But there's so many other people who are just like, hey, man, how are you going to do it? Cool. I don't care if you win. I don't care if you lose. Just represent. And I think that is something that is not a default. That should be something that we should aspire to as well. But, it's just such an interesting time because it just feels like the stakes are in a place where we don't really understand in a way sometimes as an entire industry or market. Like, what should we be critical of? What should we be positive of? What should we be supporting? And I think for me at this point, I just hope the players know that it's up to them to perform, and they will get all the glory and success as you guys did in 94 and 02. And you'll also maybe get a lot of the blame and the vitriol like you guys did in 98, right? Like you lived it all. You lived it all, my guy. Yeah. And honestly, Cobi, you've done it with so much class. I mean, 300 plus appearances, all-time caps leader, the Open Cups, the MLS Cups, all these different things. And I wanted to get you out on this. I really wanted you to know, and I shared this with a couple people. I've been in on a little bit of this statue thing, a little bit behind the scenes. And what I would say to you, I wanted to make sure I said to you what I told them is, you mean so much to so many players, but Black players are quick to name check you as someone that they saw themselves in. And I know for me, I took a lot of pride that you were down the road and you were doing your thing. And I just wanted you to know that, so many of us felt like we were standing on your shoulders, and it's so fitting that you're getting a statue. It's crazy to me that you could probably chat GPT it someday, but it's going to be like statues in Los Angeles, Wayne Gretzky, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Cobi Jones, Kobe Bryant. Like what? Like Landon Donovan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you are immortalized in a way. And honestly, I'm not even trying to be funny, but then they gave you a 9-foot statue. Like, dang. So you're going to be bigger than you've ever been. That's the real come up. But honestly, all jokes aside, I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud for you. And I know how much your mom and your dad and your family mean to you. And I just know that Siggy and all these people that love you and respected you in a way so you could be the best version of themselves are so happy for you, whether they will be in your company this weekend or not. But I wanted to share that with you, that, none of us feel like what we did in the game would be possible without you being someone that I aspire to be as good as a broadcaster as you were a player. And I wanted to be someone that could be seen as someone that was elevating what they're doing. So honestly, I thank you so much, man. Your friendship, all these years, all the stuff means a ton. But honestly, it's an amazing honor. So congratulations. Looking forward to sharing what will be just an incredible moment. And I'm so happy for you. You deserve it. Congratulations, because this, my friend, this is the ultimate receipt. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Sometimes, like they say, sometimes it's good to hear it, so I really do appreciate you saying the kind words.
Yeah, and the best is ahead, my guy. You're still a young man. You still have so much to give. I've been enjoying the show. I'm a Galaxy stan, so I love seeing all the guys, whether it be Pete Vanis or Joe Tatino, like just all the homies talking about the good old days, because very few people know what it was like to train at the Rose Bowl at Jackie Robinson, right? Across the way. And to be able to do what you guys did was phenomenal. So thank you for the time. Congratulations on everything, man. And we'll see you very, very soon.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Take care.
Take a look, I'm shining. Moonwalk, keep both feet gliding. I'm up now, great timing. When I was down, was you riding for me? When I was down, was you riding for me? Was you riding for me?